Hello. So this part is going to be about darkness. And that's something that's not being talked about enough. We don't have people normally talking about fears, depression, sadness, emptiness, hopelessness, the darker beings that we might feel, addictions, and any other thing that kind of falls into this category of not being nice and pleasant. And I think that's mostly because there are a lot of fears about not being accepted that way, but also not accepting yourself that way. It's about shame, it's about worry, it's about society casting you out in a way because you might seem crazy, you might seem as if you don't fit in. And that's not something pleasant. So we just tend to ignore that topic, but that doesn't make it go away, doesn't make it any less. It's still there, just kind of everything is swallowed down. And at one moment it might just explode, like a midlife crisis or whatever, when you suddenly have all of those topics coming up. And it might go into years of depression or burnout and having no energy at all, or just like a lot of hopelessness for yourself, for the world, for anything that you might see. And this topic I love because it can be very transformative for people if they are truly ready to face those shadow parts of themselves and the darkness and the beings of darkness and any emotions that might not be pleasant, and just this general topic, because there lies the lie, especially here in this world. We have to experience more like darkness to get to know more light. It's likes to balance out, so the more we go down, the more we can go up. And that's why it's so powerful to work with the darkness in any way that you can, in like a safe, positive container, which doesn't just let you go into the darkness, but also brings you back up. Because if you stay kind of stuck in this darkness, even if it's a controlled setting, and you're not able to bring yourself back up, then your whole life might just get like a lot of confusion on it. So there are like different things, categories there are when I'm talking about the darkness. There is like this very gray kind of space with a lot of depression and hopelessness, apathy, not much energy. Then there's like those stronger emotions which are still regarded as dark, like fear or anger. They have a bit more power in them than that state of no energy and just kind of depression. Then is the darkness regarding all of those taboo topics in this world, like weird desires, sexual topics, mental illnesses, all of those things, that are just kind of not talked about. And then there's also the spiritual part of it, which is about the polarity of the darkness and the light, and how this dark polarity is just not being acknowledged. It's, people hear about it, they maybe read it or hear about it in church. The Bible has a lot of those aspects in that. And there is like a lot of misconceptions about all of that. And I would love to clear that up. So I will begin by just telling you a bit about myself and how I got into this topic. So for me, it was, I think, around the age of 13 when I moved back from Poland, where I noticed that I was like very depressed in a way. and I never got diagnosed with that. I never talked about it. Like, I used to read a lot of books, like a book after a book, and would just stay indoors a lot in my own space, just kind of reading and avoiding everyone. And then at that age, around 13, I started like noticing like suicidal thoughts coming up, and everything would just seem so gray. And I would cry about this world and like not seeing any hope in that. And I would just walk around like still kind of putting like a facade for people. Like, my parents, they never noticed. I talked to them about that years later, but they didn't see it that way. So I felt very lonely. But I didn't wanna, be a burden to anyone, so I never spoke up about anything. And I believe that a lot of people go through that, where others don't even notice. And then they find a way to deal with that. For me, it was books. Later, it was porn. And, it's just like a way to cope. For some people, it's alcohol or drugs or work, and just working to avoid feeling. And there are many different ways you can do that. Yeah, and I remember the moment where I realized that there is more. Like, I suddenly realized, wow, I had all of those thoughts and programmings about how there is no hope, how I don't have to open up to people because they would be gone anyway in a couple of weeks or something like that. And I would just, not open up to people at all. I would still be like nice, and they would seem as if I'm a good friend, but I wasn't like very open to them. At least not the way I saw it. And I remember finding that there is joy, and there is hope, and there is love. And I will never forget that shift. It was as if something has suddenly opened, and I like saw the light. And suddenly it was like, oh, yes, finally, like something that is positive, that I can hang on to not fall into that depressive state, that I can like stay with. And I stayed with that, and with time I noticed more and more and more and more positive things. So I got out of that with time. It was a hard process, and I thought I dealt with that. Like, all the suicidal thoughts were gone. I had a lot of more energy. I was doing stuff that made me happy, and not just, lying and doing nothing all the time. And I just lost the thought that I had. Oh yeah, I thought I dealt with that, with everything. And then suddenly, like months after I thought it's all over, I had a moment where I was thinking about killing myself. And I was like, oh, it's not gone. What is this? And I was like, no, just choosing not to go into that space again. It was as if my system was testing myself. How will I react to this? Will I fall into that downward spiral again, or will I consciously choose self-love and myself? And I would just like to say, whatever you are struggling with, you are not alone. There are so many people going through this, even worse things. And it's just the way this world works. You kind of need those experiences to be able to deal with this crazy society, and also to later experience all the positive light sides, because you will be able to feel so much more gratitude and happiness, because you know how bad it can be. So you get this polarity, and that can be so positive to experience like this wide range of experience. And that can be beautiful. So even if you're like hanging on just by a little thread and feeling so hopeless and just no energy, just lying in bed, wondering like when everything will end, if it's even worth it, if it would be better if I were gone, thoughts like that, or just watching TV the whole day. At some point you will find something that will turn your life around. It will suddenly make you feel hope. And that's important, because hope is like the last thing we let go of, from my experience. It's like we hang on by a thread that there is still hope. So I hope that gives you like a bit of an insight how that kind of state can be. And later, after a couple of years, when I was looking back at that time, I actually noticed that it wasn't just all of that depression in me. I had this feeling as if the whole world around me was gray, if it was dark. I was kind of lost in this space, what I would call like between this normal existence and those lighter states, like kind of this state where like darker, lower astral beings hang around, where dead people hang around. Like I had moments where I would feel as if I'm going crazy because I heard voices or saw like shadows moving. And this realization came a couple of years after all of that happened. And then I was like, oh, when I'm in that state, I also notice that much more in my surroundings. And that would just also influence this downward spiral, because I was seeing the world around me as this gray, depressive place, and also feeling that in myself. So it was just like everything was gray and sad. And I remember all those beings of the darkness, which I'm going to talk about a bit more. And now I'm much more conscious about all of that. Back then I didn't know how to deal with that. So this is a topic that I would like to talk about, because I believe that a lot of people who are struggling with depression, with mental illnesses, like with schizophrenia or with psychosis, or all the different things that they are, that might be connected to all of that world that is not seen by the normal eye. Actually, it not just might be connected, I believe it is connected. Because, we perceive this world like as this material kind of plane, right? And when something happens, it can be through psychedelics or just consciousness expansion work or trauma or, different things, then suddenly something can open up in us and we begin to experience all of those other things. And that might be something that we have had already since birth, and we have never learned how to deal with that. But especially with people who fall suddenly into that, it's very hard to deal with it. I had moments where it was very, very hard for me to deal with that. Like I couldn't sleep without the light on for a long time because of that fear that something will come, and I could feel it. I could feel it in my body, like something poking me or squeezing some part of the body, and it's not something pleasant. So I just want to say, for anyone who's struggling with any kind of mental illness which is diagnosed, you're not crazy. Those things exist, and there might be a part of you which is just so much influenced by the fear that is making still some stuff on top of that. But there is a part of that which is real. So, for example, with schizophrenic people who believe they see things, you might actually be seeing things. Because suddenly when something changes in the system, and then you see more than there is to the life, like a clairvoyance. And yeah, if you see it and the others don't, and you talk about it because you don't realize it, you're gonna be seen as crazy, right? Because in a normal society, it's just not normal. So either you learn how to deal with all of that in a very kind of guarded way, in a very conscious way, where you don't scare other people, when you don't get a lot of judgment, or if you just know how to communicate in a way where it's all kind of positive for the society, then you're just gonna be seen as a crazy person who has a weird mental illness and is just not normal and has to be healed. But actually, no, you just have to learn to deal with those things, and it can become a gift if you know how to face it, if you know how to work with it. It can become something beautiful. But we have to first learn how to deal with that. And that is so hard because there is no education about those unseen things. There is no education about the different beings of the light, the different beings of the dark. There is like nothing, in the normal schooling system. And a lot of children have that, the monsters under the bed or imaginary friends, they might be real. They probably are. And we as adults disregard all of that, telling them there is nothing there. But, we just make them doubt themselves and that's what they are feeling. Because there might be. There probably is something there. We just as adults have no ability to see it or experience it. But they still have. They haven't lost this ability. But we, through questioning all of that, through telling them that there is nothing there, we make them close all of those abilities down because they have to learn how to deal with this society that just doesn't accept or understand it. So they just cut all of that off and believe you because you're a bigger person, because you're an adult. So they believe you that there is nothing there. So I'm wrong and the adult is right. And this happens. And because of that, there's just no awareness. The people then get sent off into an asylum or have to go see a therapist, which also doesn't understand what is going on. Like, I know some psychiatrists who have an ability to see all of that. And that's just such a gift to those people who are there dealing with those things and not understanding them, because you actually have someone who knows what is happening and not just normal doctors who will stuff you full of drugs. And that's not a way to deal with it. That will not help. Drugs or any antidepressives, they won't help. They will just make you like dumb. What is the English word? Just like not feel that or what is going on, but it will still be there. And the way to go would be to just face all of that darkness in you, face all of that what you're experiencing, and even if it's so very, very scary, even if it feels as if you face it you will never survive or go out, even if it feels like you will just die in the process, in a way, you have to find that piece of you that wants to go on, that wants to face it, that wants to transform it. And for many people, that might be someone who helps them, guide them, or there might be this moment where the higher being kind of speaks out through the person, into the person, and tells them what to do. Because a part of you is still going to want to evolve. You will not stay in this constant journey, like this constant cycle. You will at some point get out because your soul and your spirit just want you to keep on moving, reaching higher states, going further on your spiritual journey in your life. So there is a way out, and that way out can be very painful. And yeah, there is just no better way to say it. You have to go deep into your own shit. That's what I tell people. If you want to fully transform, if you want to become a psychic, a healer, like doing energy work, you have to go into your own shit and just go deep. Because there is nothing better to experience those higher states than going very deep into those scary, dark parts of yourself. And there are many different ways to do that. Like, what I recommend for people is, for example, breath work. And especially at the beginning, don't do those things by yourself. Especially if you have depression, if you have any mental illness, right? If you have like any kind of insecurity, if you're taking any medicine, don't do that by yourself. You want to have a stable and safe environment where you can try the different things out and find the tool that works for you. And I wouldn't recommend going to normal doctors, because they will just try to stuff you full of drugs or will try to help you in a way, but they won't really understand what is going on. So I prefer all of those alternative medicines and alternative healing ways, because it's just kind of, it's closer to the truth, just saying it like that. And breathwork can be one thing which you can try out, because it helps you to go into like a little altered state of being through which you can access those parts of traumas, deep emotions, and learn to integrate them, because they will come up and you have to deal with all of that is in you, even if you don't want to. So there might be a lot of sadness coming up, a lot of anger, like a lot of fear, and things will just kind of start to come up when you start doing the inner work. And there is basically no choice. If you want to get better, you have to do inner work, at least in my eyes. So breath work, then there's this whole thing about inner child work, working with different parts of yourself, and that's beautiful. I recommend that a lot. Also for people who are beginning with this work, breath work can be something you do further on, because for breath work you need a certain ability to trust yourself and to let go and to surrender to the process. And inner child work can be easier to get into, because it's like easier for your mind to grasp. And there are ways where you can like find those inner child aspects of yourself who are maybe sitting in the dark, very hopeless, and you can integrate them back, bringing them back into your system, building a connection with them, things like that. Or, parts you have cut off because of traumas that you can also reconnect with again, and integrating all of those different experiences you have had. Loving yourself, finding love for the inner child part in you, for the many different inner child parts in you. So there is this work, and that's beautiful too. So emotional release is also something I recommend doing, and it's mostly about releasing all of those emotions that come up. So if you feel sadness, you want to get to a point where you can actually cry about things and experience that. Or if you feel fear, you don't want to avoid that fear anymore. You want to feel fear fully and allow yourself to just feel fear, full-time fear. And if you feel anger, you want to let that out. You want to scream, you want to shout, you want to, maybe kill a pillow and just, punch everything you have into it. So you just want to let all of that out of your system. Because if you don't, it will still be there in a way, even if you don't see it. So you're just gonna have to work a lot, process all of those things emotionally. What else is there? What other tools to face this darkness? Like energy work that can help you find more peace and integration. So I also recommend doing that. It can be like a more gentle method too, and can help you to have someone you trust to open up, to talk about the things afterwards, but just also to give more energy into your system to actually like transform and work through all of those things. Yeah, and I think the most important thing about all of this is finding people which you can openly talk to about those things with. People you trust. Because for most of us who are dealing with this, we feel very lonely. Like there is no one who understands us, as if we're just a burden to anyone if we talk about it, as if we have to avoid anyone and everything, where we just have to deal with it on our own, because that's what people tell us, right? If you have a problem, you deal with it. And finding people who are close to you, who you can trust, that can be life-changing, because suddenly you can open up, you learn to trust yourself more, you have people you connect to, and they might have had those experiences or they might have not, but it's just important to have people to whom you can share, to not feel so lonely, to feel understood, because this is important at the beginning. Later, you don't need it anymore because you're just independent of whatever is going on. But if you feel as if you have never known what it's like to open up to people, to talk with people, to feel seen, then it's important to find someone. And that can be a therapist, but in that setting, you usually feel as if they are just your work colleague, not work colleague, but the people you go to, that they work with you, and it doesn't feel like a friendly connection, right? So you can find some support group, for example, or just people in the spiritual kind of scene, because a lot of them have some experience, more or less, of all of this, and more understanding generally. So that might be something you can look at. And finding your crowd is just important with any of this work. And whatever things there are to learn to face this darkness. Like, for example, shamanic work, shamanic journeys, for example, where you travel consciously through like guided practices, meditations, drumming. They use a lot of drums. That is also very helpful, because you learn to also like trust the process, have someone there to guide you, and it can also bring you into those altered states. There is also all of that psychedelic scene, and I believe that can help, but I wouldn't recommend it to people who are beginners in this work, who are also unstable, who I don't even want to get too much into this topic, because it's illegal and I don't want to be bringing that out or recommending it. I believe it can help because it brings you also into this altered space, but I believe you can reach those states without it. I would recommend breath work or shamanic journey or energy work so much more, because it's just also a way to get there in a safer environment, because especially for people with already some kind of mental stuff, for people who cannot process this world so much, it can end up not so good unless you have like a very trusted therapist. And if you end up doing that, don't just go to a retreat and think that's everything. Do preparation work, do integration work. Don't just do it and then see what happens. I think that's like a very kind of vulnerable subject, because it can just be so unsafe. So if you end up trying that out, just find a place which is very good. And there are already like normal certified centers and people who do it in a way that's legal, like therapists who work with these methods, especially I think in the US. So yeah, that can be a way to go. And I think another important aspect, generally speaking, like finding a community, finding people who we can share with, is this part about finding hope again. Finding something which you can look forward to. Finding something which brings you joy. Like for me, it was dancing. I started dancing, doing couples dance. And I loved it. It was like I started dancing and then I was dancing like, I don't know, 3 or 5 times a week, like a lot of dancing. And then I stopped going to normal parties. I stopped drinking. I stopped a lot of different things. And I suddenly learned how to open up to people through this dancing connection. And it was beautiful. I suddenly made a lot of new friends, and that has just changed my life around. So you can just find something that can bring you a bit closer to people, and a thing which you maybe enjoy. And it might be something you always wanted to do as a child. I remember I wanted to dance, but I was sent to do martial arts. So that's just an example. And maybe you have a part in you that wants to paint and draw. So maybe you find like a group of artists who meet up regularly. Or just like hobby artists. Or maybe you learn to go out into nature and start doing hikes and finding beauty in the nature, or start picking like mushrooms or picking wild plants and just reconnecting to the nature and finding the beauty that you can eat all of those things that the nature gives you. So inner child work can help you reach that space, because it will bring up not only those sad parts of the inner child, but also those ones who are happy. And those parts might help you find happiness and joy again. So it will change your life if you have like this thread of hope which you can hang on to, especially if you're like in this deep space. And that can be anything, just something you enjoy. It can be cooking. For a lot of people, it's sport. They learn to deal with everything through sport because they let off a lot of energy, and it's just something they can do. It's something socially acceptable, but it shouldn't become an addiction. Like dancing for me shouldn't become an addiction, and any of these things shouldn't become an addiction, because it's not helping them anymore. It's just making you go again into avoiding what is there. But it will still help because you finally find something that you enjoy. So that's that. And another important aspect is finding a way where you can create safety for yourself and trust yourself. Because all of this is about stability. It's about safety, it's about communication, trust. And for example, just to give you like a picture of what I mean, if you feel as if you don't know how to deal with the beings of the darkness, for example, then you will have to learn how to find more stability in yourself, how to become more grounded, how to be able to make better boundaries, and how to, I'm here, they are there, and this is like here. That's my space, that's their space. That's just like an example. It can also be about I lost the thread of thought. It can also be about those moments where you feel like you're going crazy and you're having all of those mental things where you cannot like pinpoint anything, you don't even know what is going on. And then you will just have to learn to, in a way, trust yourself and surrender and know that you will come back out again. Like those kind of very mind fucking places just another example. So it's going to be about learning to trust yourself, enough to speak out to people, learning to create a safe space for yourself where you are able to let out emotions, where you can feel vulnerable in a safe space. So I, for example, recommend a lot of cushions, a lot of blankets, something without windows through which people can look into, something with a door which is closed because you don't want anyone walking in, a place where you don't feel as if someone can hear you, like something that is very safe in a way, which is just like the surroundings don't influence you that much. And then you can go into a very vulnerable space. And it would be best if you don't have anything that you can make yourself run away from that space from. So like the phone or music or books or things like that, they might make you avoid that safe space you have created for yourself. Yeah. I feel I've talked so much and given you so much information. I think it's just, time to acknowledge that it's all just a very vulnerable space and can be very tiring. It can be very energy sucking and just like a very deep space in a way. And we will not see beauty in it at the beginning, but at some point we maybe will. And it is hard, but it's also possible to change and to change all of it. So just this little time of acknowledgement, of acknowledging you, me, us, the world, all the people facing all of this. I see you, and I think it's important to be seen. Can also grab a mirror and look into it yourself and acknowledge yourself. I see you. That can be helpful. Okay. So regarding all of this work, there are also all of those beings of the dark and people working with the dark that I would like to speak about. Because we have the light side, we have the beings of the light, like angels, your guides. We have also elemental beings of water, earth, fire, wind. We have a lot of different beings. This whole world is full of them, even if we don't see it. And we also have beings like ghosts, what people call them, just dead people who are still on this astral plane, which might be around you. And there are also beings who are like energy suckers, lower hierarchy demonic beings, higher demonic beings, beings that like to play jokes around you. So many different beings, like this world is really full of them. And all of those beings have a certain positive aspect to this world, you know. They help create it, they help manage it all in a way we might not perceive. Like, for example, the beings of the forest, like earth elemental beings. They are there, you know, like gnomes, to help with the decay and processing that time of autumn and winter. And then there are like elves, fairies, and like all those lighter kind of beings which help with growth and with help, you know, all of those plants become alive again. So it's not just the scientific part, it's also this part about those beings being there, those beings helping us for life. And just as those beings have some kind of a meaning in nature, those darker beings also have some meanings in our system. Like, for example, lower demonic beings, just as an example, they are also there to make you aware of your own topics, because they will come if they feel that there is something in you which resonates to them. Like, you know, like the law of attraction with them. So if you yourself have a lot of fear, they are gonna be, oh, fear, we love to eat fear, you know, and they're gonna come and then just gonna feed off you. And that has a positive side, because it can make you more aware of it, because you can silently face it even better. Because also with this process of them taking all of that energy, they are making it go away in a way which is like energetically speaking, you know. So there are positive aspects to all of that. And then your soul and spirit and beings of the light can send more energy into your body and help you transform in that way. And all of those beings of the dark have a certain value. So I don't want people to be, you know, not accepting them, saying just negative things, and, you know, you have to avoid them, you have to that, you know, like a lot of Christian people, a lot of people reading the Bible, they're like, oh, demons, you know. It's true, you know, you don't want to have anything to do with them, you don't want to do any pacts or things like that. But you have to learn to accept that they are there, and you have to learn to accept that there are things in you which attract them. And then you can do inner work to transform your system, and then they are not there anymore, because you are transforming yourself and integrating things, so they don't have that much of a resonance to you. And if you still have so many topics, then they will. So it's basically not about saying no to them, it's about saying yes to yourself. It's about facing yourself, it's about working through all of those topics to be able to deal more with those beings of the darkness. And if we don't know how to deal with all of that, it can feel very dark. Like, this whole world is dark, the beings are crawling around everywhere. I see dead people and they want something from me, and I feel tormented, you know. That's the world, the word that I feel describes it the best: torment. Because you feel as if you're going crazy, you feel as if you're pushed in every direction, you feel stuck, you cannot speak out, they might be even like they squeezing your throat and you cannot tell anything. And it's just, they're like kind of like being pushed around in a gray thing where you just don't know what is going on. So torment is for me the best way to describe it. And the wind is strong right now. Yeah, so it actually is that way that some of those beings might want your attention, because if they see that you see them, then they might be very happy. because suddenly they are being seen. It's just like us, it's also similar to them, especially to those people that are just dead and still hanging on here. Because they usually tend to hang on because they don't know they are dead, because they are still going through some stuff, because they are hanging on to their relatives or lovers or children or objects or a house, because they are just, still so focused on the life that they had. And you seeing them might turn out to be positive for them, because you might be able to guide them, to speak with them, to tell them, I see you and you are dead, and you can try to move on, because they sometimes need this facing their reality too. They need to know that everything has changed. And that's like an aspect about the dead people. All of those evil, the darker beings than the dead people, they, it's hard to face them for people. And a lot of people would say that they are possessed, for example. And they think, they are possessed, and it's all the fault of the thing that is possessing me. This has nothing to do with me. It's all the fault of the demon. And it's not like that. It might influence you and make all of those things stronger, and it might whisper into your ear what you should do. It might tell you things you should do. You might suddenly act on those things. But it's just there because you already have something in you which makes you accessible for it. And it might be because you don't feel strong enough in your own system, so you have no boundary and you're just allowing it to work for you. It might be because you already have those desires for those things, and it's just there because you already have something in you. And you have to face that. You cannot blame it on those beings. You cannot blame it on other people. You cannot blame it on anyone. Not parents, not people who have done something to you, like not rapists, not murderers, no one. Everything in a way has something to do with you, because you are able to take choices at every moment, even if you don't feel like it, even if you don't realize it, if you don't feel it. There is a choice in everything. And that might be hard to believe. You might feel as if I'm talking about whatever. It doesn't make sense. So you can just take it as I'm saying it and believe it, or you can not believe it. You can make your own opinion on that, which I strongly recommend. Just find your own truth, that what works for you. For me, that is the truth. And coming back to those beings, they will influence you. They will want to influence you. They will want you to watch more porn because they love sexual energy. They will want you to have very kind of low kind of sex, just kind of fucking. It's not even beautiful in any way. They will want you to eat junk food. They will want you to keep your addiction to movies or books or whatever. They will want you to steal, to hurt people, to do all of those things which you wouldn't do normally if you don't have those kind of thoughts and desires in you. But as I said before, they will only make that stronger, which is already there. And they might also whisper things in your ears because you have to face that reality, because you have to learn how to differentiate between what is mine and what is influencing me from the outside. And for example, if you suddenly have a thought coming up, I want to jump off the bridge, for example, or how would it be to just go to the road and let a bus hit me? You want to look deep and see, okay, where is this coming from? Is it something from myself that I already know from me? Is it something I have seen recently in a movie? Is it something that I feel as if it's coming from the outside into my system? Where is this coming from? And what in me makes this come up? Why is it present? What is going on? So try to find that reason why that thing is there, why it's present in your life. And the first thing you should do is not blame it on the outside, but look inwards. Not say, okay, there is a darker being influencing me or I'm possessed, but look, okay, why would I be wanting to do this? Or there might be like a whisper, you could steal this, you don't have to pay for it. So why? Is it because I have worries about money? Is it because it would be exciting? What is the reason in you that makes those things come up? That makes you become influenced? And another thing I want to acknowledge at this point is that, especially with all of those beings of the dark and of the light, and especially those of the dark, because the beings of the light would not want to influence us in that way. And those beings of the dark and us and the way we deal with it, it's especially hard for people who have abilities which are more like percepting more, like the clear senses, psychic abilities. If you have ability to do that, like hearing, seeing, feeling more, then there is like extra perception skills, it's going to be harder for you. You might not even notice it if you don't have those skills. If you don't have those skills, then you might not even know what I'm talking about. You might not notice those things at all. You might not notice the pain in the world, how gray everything is, how those beings influence you and torment you, because you don't have the ways to perceive it. So for most people struggling with mental illnesses, with any kind of depression, with things like that, it would be pretty common for them to have those abilities and just not knowing how to deal with them. So they will have all of those abilities, everything will be open in a way, but they will not know how to ground themselves, how to create healthy boundaries, how to work with all of that, how to deal with all of that, how to see if this is part of reality and how to see if it's not. And by reality, I mean this physical plane, because it's still real, but it's not physical. So you will want to learn how to manage those skills that you might have, to learn to deal better with this darkness, because it might help you become more aligned with yourself, and with that you are not so much influenced by the outside and what you feel or see in the outside. It will give you a lot more stability and clarity. Clarity and stability are important because you want to know how to differentiate between those things you experience. You want to know when something is yours, when it's not. You want to know what is going on in your system. So all of those different things would help you. And yeah, you can do that in many different ways. Like learning how to do energy work might help, because in that setting you learn how to work with other people, with yourself. You learn how to ground, disconnect from people and things like that, which you can later use for those beings and things and experiences you have. But it's also just important to learn how to differentiate reality from not reality. And I mean, both still are real, but I mean like the physical reality. So you want to know what is physical. This is physical. You want to know which person is physical or which one is a dead person. You want to just learn how to see what is there and what is just seen by you and not by everyone. And in that way, you can learn how to manage all of that better. You can learn to communicate better. You just become so much more aware of everything around you. Okay. So I think it's time to talk about the beauty of all of this. Because even if there is so much darkness in the world, if you feel so much darkness, if you have so many common things that I have talked about, if you feel that they are also what you know, then you might at some point realize how wonderful all of this is, not because it's amazing, but because it helps you to guide you on your way, because it allows you to learn how to differentiate the good from the bad, the light from the dark. It will help you increase your range. It will help you trust yourself more, because if you know how to go into that deep darkness, then nothing will scare you anymore. You will learn to be more brave, and it just has a certain power, you know. This kind of darkness, it for many people feels so powerful because there is power there, you know. Those things like demonic pacts, they exist. They really exist, you know. And some people might be struggling with the notion that there are satanic people, that there are people going into pacts with those beings. But I believe that there are, and it holds a lot of power with it. It holds money, it holds beauty, good sex, you know, things like that. But are those things really those things that you value in your life? Like, truly, is that something that is so important? Like, you have to really tune into, what are my values? What is important to me? How do I become pure in myself and not let myself have so much resonance to those things? Maybe they have some deep, dark sexual desires I have never lived through or I have never really integrated. And those still get, those beings still get attracted to that because it's still in your system. Like, I use this example of rape fantasies because people have them and it's something very dark and taboo. And those beings get super attracted to that because it's there. And I don't mean just raping someone, I mean also being raped, both of those sides. And it's something we wouldn't do because we know it's bad, because we know we shouldn't, we know we don't want to actually, we know it's nothing that we would ever act out, but it might still be there. Because we would love how to see how it is to fully let go of control, to have no choice, how to really dominate someone, and, you know, all of those different aspects that we don't know how to live out in our everyday life. And that's why there is this very dark scenario combined to it. Like, if we really knew how to deal with dominance, control, letting go in everyday life, we wouldn't need that. If we knew how to relax deeply, for example, how to let go of everything, how to stay in control and be able to deal with our life in a good way, I don't believe all of those things would be there. But we don't learn how to do those things. So we go into weird tendencies, weird thoughts, weird desires, and the dark side loves them. So you have to face yourself. Once again, you have to go deep into your own shit. Allow it all to come. Surrender to yourself. Learn to trust yourself. Face all of that. Even if it's scary, painful, hard, and as if it seems like an endless cycle. Go into that and integrate it. And once you integrate all of those tiny little pieces, everything, big ones, small ones, when you integrate more and more, everything will become lighter. There might be things still coming your way and triggering you, but you will know how to deal better with it. And there might be things coming up for you to deal with from your childhood or from past lives. Things which you are now able to hold, which you are now able to face because you have faced so much already. So you become so much stronger by facing all of those things, by facing yourself, by facing the darkness. You become so much stronger and you are able to learn how to hold more light in you because you have just evolved in that way. You suddenly know how to deal better with some unseen beings because you know how to differentiate, because you know how to trust yourself and what you see and what you feel. You know how to talk to people about it. You just grow with all of those experiences. So it's just positive in that way because it brings you growth. Because it helps you widen your range. And we as human beings are here, sent from up there, for God, a spirit and a soul, to just basically experience life. And some of us might have it in our life journey to experience the darker part of light, not just the light side of it. Some of us might have came down to this earth and said, I'm gonna be the bad guy right now because I just want to learn how it is, because I want to experience it, because I want to help other people grow by being the bad guy in their life. So looking at all of this from a higher place, where we are on this soul, spirit, God level, it's going to be about wanting to experience more, for the whole universe to grow, for every kind of experience that we have. We will want, there is no judgment up there. There is no polarity, no good or bad. There is no judgment about anything. It just happens. It just is. It helps people to grow and to evolve, and that's the main goal, to just transform, to grow, to evolve, to become bigger, for the whole consciousness to expand. And that is what is happening. That's why there is so much darkness, because it just helps with this growth. And I know myself, and also a lot of people who have this anger towards God. Why is this like this? If you love everyone, why would you make it like this, so bad? And it's basically because it is also out of love. It is also there to evolve you. It is there to make you grow in a way that might not seem lovable. But seeing what happens out of that, you might realize that it was to a certain benefit. You might years later learn that and realize that, for example, your father being abusive has made you learn how to become stronger. Or you might learn that being a bully has helped you realize that it is bad to do this, that you want to deal with people in another way. So there can come a time where you see all of your past experiences as something positive, even if you haven't at that time. So it all kind of needs a certain level of consciousness and our ability to look back and realize and acknowledge all of that, and to accept yourself, to accept both of those sides of you, that darkness in you, that light in you, both of that is there. It's like two parts of a coin. It's this polarity. We have polarity in everything here. You know, we have the masculine and the feminine. We have the dark and the light. We have our own energy system. We have magnetic and the electric forces. It's all about polarity here, you know? And this polarity is just two sides of one coin. And this polarity at the end is just a way for oneness to show itself here. And once you learn to accept both of those sides as not something good, but as something that is, as something that has a benefit in a way, as something that is there to help you grow, you will come closer to this union. You will come closer to God. You will come closer to acceptance, to love, to neutrality, to just like a pureness that will come with it. And having that acknowledgement of all of that will still make you choose the side of light. It will still make you do good things, but it will be in a way where you don't judge those bad things anymore, but you just see them and maybe see the value in all of that. And I know it can be hard. I know it can be very hard to accept some of the words that I'm saying, some of the things that I'm saying, some of the views that I have. I know it can be hard. And this is me telling you this out of this standing point that I have now. You know, you always have to think about that. You know, in a couple of years, I might be talking about totally different things. That wouldn't surprise me. But it's always about that point you have now and the people that would still learn something from it. So I'm looking forward to the future and what will come. And I hope you can learn something out of that. And I hope that you can give yourself like a certain bit of openness, and also give me a bit of openness, where you think like, okay, maybe it's true, maybe I don't know everything, so that what she might be talking about might be right, even if I don't feel that it's right at the moment. And for me, it's also the same. Even if I'm saying you this is what I believe now, it might be okay. I'm open to it not being right when I realize something is different. So try to keep openness to all of this. And now I will look if I wanted to tell you anything more in all of this. And I think I talked about a lot of things. Yeah, another thing I wanted to tell you about is the void and the nothingness. Because I think we worked through a lot of topics now. And this one needs some attention. So, when doing inner work, when being on a spiritual path, we all grow. And we grow and we grow and we grow. And there are moments where we reach, for example, stillness of the mind and inner peace. And if we know places like apathy, where there is also stillness and peace in a certain way, how do we know which one is what? You know, how do we know if the stillness that we have is positive stillness, where it's quiet, where you're at peace? Or how do we know it's emptiness, where it's apathy, where it's just depression in your system? There are like similar states in a way, but one of them is positive, the other is more negative on the spectrum. So as you grow, you have to also learn how to see those different things. And it's the same with nothingness. You know, people say God is everything and it's also nothing. It's all and it's one. It's we and it's us and it's you and it's me and all of those things. And it is like that. But how can we get not lost in this nothingness? How can we see the void for what it is and not think that is all that there is? So this might all be very vague, and I recommend hearing this audio up from Stephen Hawking. Not Stephen Hawking, oh god. Wrong name. Sorry, David. Yeah. So this space is beautiful. But it's not all that there is. There is still even more. And for example, I recommend doing like retreats in the darkness, where you are in pure darkness for a couple of days, for a couple of weeks, however long you feel like it, where you just learn how to be in the darkness. And I did that, and I thought there would be a lot of fear coming up, but there wasn't. I felt like as if I was in a loving space, as if I was in like the belly of a mother, you know, kind of dark and cozy and very lovable. It was amazing. And that made me realize like the kind of thoughts and projections I had and thoughts I had of that, and how much they were far away from the reality that I then experienced. And that has helped me to see that what I think is not that what is going to come. And that openness is something that can help us through life so much. And experiencing this darkness, this nothingness, like this feeling of just emptiness in a positive way, is very beautiful. It can be very relaxing. You simply might feel as if everything is so wide and open, and there is just no way to actually put it into words, because it's just an experience that you don't have. It's very hard to put into words the void and the experiences that come with it, because it's just something unfathomable in a way. Just like experiencing Buddhi or like godlike states. It's hard to put into words, at least for me. There might be people who can put it into words better. But it's a beautiful space. It's a beautiful space to feel darkness and to feel emptiness, once you know it's a place where you can come to peace, where you can rest, where it's just like a place of resting. You know, it's the time of winter. That's why we also have the seasons, because all of this life is like a cycle. We have the darkness, we have the winter time, we have the time where we go inwards. For some people that means that in the winter time there are a lot of topics coming up where we have to do inner work. And this nature just shows us the cycle of birth and death and rebirth, which we also have in us. With like every moon cycle, with the nature, women with their period, we are with our whole lives. And every year, for example, every year we have a winter. And we can use all of these cycles to help us go into the darkness, to help us go into that stillness, into the peace, into nothingness, into the small little death that we have. And we can do that in winter time. We can do it during the different moon phases. And we can use all of that to help us experience everything in a stronger way. Just showing us that what is on the outside is also going on in the inside. So try to find different tools where you can help yourself do inner work, where you can reach those states, where you can expand your consciousness beyond the dark and the light and this duality, and going into the unity that there is. And that is just like a long path in this human life for many people. It is something that we might not even reach ever, because it's just not something we wanted to reach in this life, where we see yourself as the souls that came down here. It is maybe just something we haven't had in our plan. And it can help to have this perspective from higher up, from the soul, from God, where you learn through that to accept both the darkness and the light. That can be a step towards acceptance. But it cannot be a space where you run away to. You have to find a way to deal with it in your physical form, in this life, in your personality, because you are incarnated here. And this is what happens also a lot with people who cannot deal with this life, who cannot deal with the darkness. They run away. They physically just kind of escape their body. They go to those higher planes, and then they are happy. But they are not really living, because this human life, it's about experiencing life. It's about the duality. It's about food. It's about nature. It's about the cycle of death and rebirth. So that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of life. That's the beauty of incarnating here. It's about the ability to make mistakes, which are not really mistakes because they have helped us on our way to find truth and not make mistakes. So any mistake you feel you're making, any darkness you're experiencing, it all has a positive side because we have duality. It's not just that, it's also that. So there is a beauty to it, and I hope you find a way, maybe in a certain time, where you get to experience this duality. Learn to see that it is both because you're already experiencing it. That's just like such a paradox, right? So I just hope you find awareness and consciousness. Becoming aware that it is both. Learning to accept both. Seeing everything as both. And just living life fully. Going, evolving, reaching higher states. Integrating all your different topics and triggers. And just growing in this human experience, which is amazing. Even if it's so dark and evil and bad sometimes, or all the time, like some of you might think. And for some people, it sadly sometimes would be like that. Sometimes for their whole life, they are just in this dark, bad space. For some people, there is no going out of it. And that's because they have chosen to do it that way. Their soul has sent them down here to experience maybe death early, to experience slavery, to experience hunger, to experience pain, to experience schizophrenia and not being able to deal with it. And that also has a positive aspect in it, because you grow on that soul level, because you help the people around you grow by experiencing all of that. And I'm still sad about things like this. I'm sad that there are people who experience things like this their whole life. I find it hard to accept it for what it is. And I hope it will someday not be there like that again. But at the same time, I know if we have that, we also have the light side of it at some level. And I know that in my head, but emotionally, it's still hard to really integrate it. So, I'm not perfect, and I don't ask you to be. I just want you to know we are in this together, on this journey, seeing the darkness, being the darkness, but also the light, and experiencing the light. And if you're watching this, if you're here, then you are already on your way. You are always on your way. And here now you can just realize it. You can look back at what you have experienced of all of those dark parts of your life, and then look at, oh, I'm here now. I landed somehow in this course, and a lot has changed in my life. And that's beautiful. This is growth. So, I thank you for being here, and I hope I have given you a bit of a perspective and a little bit of acknowledgement and clarity about all of this darkness, about all of the many topics that come with it. And there is so much more. There are ways where you can really go in through guided meditations, through ways where you can reach those deep spaces. So look, if you still have questions, look, and the answers would come. Have an openness for the answers to come. And they might come into you directly, or they might come as people around you, or they might come as books, or many different things. See you soon again.